and welcome to another episode of FAQ Monday. Another Monday, another question. You know what I'm saying? Let's just dive right in. Let's just get right to it. Thoughts and opinions on building, owning, and operating a classic recording studio in modern times? Rhythm guitarist, great question. I think by classic studio, let me just make sure I get this right for the viewers at home. A classic recording studio as in utilizing a lot of outboard analog gear. The first thought that came to my mind when reading that question is like Jack White's Third Man Studios at Third Man Records. His record store, his recording studio, where like they use like the only used gear made before 1968. I'm exaggerating, but you know, that is basically the essence. I'm very burpy right now. Excuse me. You know, you're not gonna find a Pro Tools rig in a classic studio. I think that kind of studio could be a real good vibe. It also depends. I mean, that's kind of genre specific. So obviously you're not gonna get, you know, you're not gonna get a modern progressive metal band in there to record in your classic studio. However, that's probably not what you're going after if you're starting a classic studio anyway. I think it's gonna be incredibly expensive. It's gonna be incredibly hard to source reliable old gear, because if it's old gear and a classic aesthetic, you know, old gear is very, very unreliable. It needs a lot of maintenance and upkeep. If you have the pocketbook to build such a studio, it could be a unique experience for anyone recording there. I know there is I think it's over in Europe where they've recreated basically the original like Motown studios or something like that. I'm probably way off, but I did see a video about that where like they have the rarest outboard gear in the world in the studio, and it's just incredible. I know Sun Studios that you can still record at, where like Elvis and Johnny Cash recorded their original stuff, is still in operation. You can record on all the old analog stuff in that studio. It's pretty cool. I would love to record at a studio like that, you know. But I think if your pocketbook can sustain it, it would be a cool thing to do. However, few people's pocketbooks can sustain that kind of maintenance, honestly. But I think it'd be cool. Favorite and least favorite cities you've played and why? Good question, Deacon Sin Obsidian Order LV on Twitter. Great name. Let's see. Favorite cities to play or favorite city to play? Chicago has always been really, really cool to play. Los Angeles Los Angeles isn't that great to play. Georgia has always been, Atlanta, Georgia has always been very, very, very energetic and so cool to anything I've ever been a part of. I've played there a couple of times now. Rest Repose played their best show ever there. For me, with the Dragged Under stuff, playing at the Gramercy Theater in New York was a big deal to me. There was a lot of labels there, but I also am such a huge fan of the venue. You know, the Gramercy Theater is a very, very legendary and old venue in New York. That was such an honor to play, and that ultimately playing that show got us signed to the record deal that we have now. So yeah, New York, Chicago, favorite places to play. Least favorite places to play? Oh God, I'd probably say Buffalo. Buffalo, New York is probably one of them. And obviously I had a lot to do at the time of year. You know, we had driven 14 straight hours on the used tour that we did. It was an off show, so it was a headline show in between two support shows. So we had to drive out of the way about 12 hours and then the next day go back to meet up with the rest of the tour. And we had driven through Niagara Falls and it was like, you know, 15 degrees out. The gear was freezing, we were freezing. There was, you know, several feet of snow on the ground. It was pretty miserable, and the crowd was okay. But like the promoter was, you know, giving us a hard time for not being present for the opening band, and that it was just a bad vibe. Bad vibe. So far, my only experience in Buffalo was a very, very horrible one. Sorry, Buffalo. What's your favorite music-related movie? Or a top 5, maybe. Ooh, music-related movie. Airheads. I love Airheads. I'm not gonna say Crossroads, because I've only seen that once and it was okay. But I don't know, my favorite music-related movie, so I keep, the things I'm thinking of are like more like documentaries. But music-related movies could also be like the Queen movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah. That, I loved Rockstar. Rockstar's probably my favorite music-related movie, honestly. I love that movie. And yeah, those are my top, I'll give you a top 3. Airheads, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Rockstar. Those are my favorites. Have you ever tried Avatar cabinets / speakers? If so, thoughts? Thank you, Jackson, for your question. Yes, I have tried Avatar cabinets, 412s and 212s. Several of my friends over the years have had them. If you've never heard of Avatar cabs and speakers, you can either buy speakers from them, like Celestions and Eminent stuff. At least last time I looked, I haven't looked in several years. But they build basically budget-friendly, high-quality speaker cabinets that the common working man can afford. I think a 412 is like, it's like $600. I mean, they're varying, right? So it depends on the configuration and the setup you want and the thickness of the wood. If you want a classic Marshall style or an orange style or whatever, I believe, you know, at the time they're like $600 for a 412, which is a great deal for a brand new 412, how you want it. You know, any color you want, any grill you want, speakers, whatever. Avatar cabs are pretty good. I've never heard anyone complain about the Avatar cabs, certainly. And I know a lot of top touring guys use their wedges, like their speaker cabinet wedges, which are really, really cool. But yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. But yeah, Avatar cabs, cool with me. What are your thoughts on active versus passive pickups and the James Hetfield headset with a combo of both? Thanks. I don't know that the headset has a combination of both. You can't use active and passive together. I mean, I guess technically you could, but it wouldn't be worth the effort. That's very, very difficult because an active pickup requires obviously a battery and different value potentiometers, pots, knobs, than a passive pickup, generally speaking. So I wouldn't, you can't combine them. But to answer your main question, active versus passive pickups, you know, I am a Fishman artist. I love Fishman Fluence active pickups. However, over the years and in doing a lot of recording and tracking on guitars, there are a time and a place for everything, right? So for me, a Fishman active pickup has more clarity. And you know, the thing with the Fishman Fluence in particular, not EMG, but with Fishman Fluence is, you know, you're getting the entire frequency range in phase. So you are getting a full spread of the frequencies in phase, which is really, really great for high gain guitars and cutting through a mix and getting a lot of clarity under a lot of gain. Now, that may or may not be a good thing when you're trying to get a great clean tone, for example. A passive pickup, you know, there's a phase relationship between every single time that wire touches another wire when it's being wound, you know, 10,000 times, right? And a lot of times those combinations sound great. Sometimes they don't sound great, but you will never get two pickups the same. But to my ear, a passive pickup sounds more saturated and dirty and a little thicker in most cases. And I'm not talking about the tone of the pickup, I'm talking about the frequency spread of the pickup, because you're not gonna get the high-end detail that you're gonna get in something like an active pickup. You just aren't. But that's not a bad thing, depending on what you're going for. So for me, for rock tones and clean tones, I really, you know, in the studio, I have a little bit of everything for that reason. I like a passive pickup for that. For high gain guitar tones, for heavy stuff, for palm muty chuggy stuff, I prefer actives. So it just really depends on the genre and what kind of guitarist you are. but I highly recommend trying both and making a decision for yourself. What's your favorite version of the 5150 amps we've seen over the years? I don't know if I could pick just one, honestly. I would have to say the OG 5150, because without that, we would have never had, we wouldn't be where we're at now without that original PV5150. Now, maybe we would have in some way, shape, or form, but not like it happened. I think where is it? The 50 watt Stealth down below me that you probably can't see because it's too dark and out of frame. The 50 watt EVH Stealth is the pinnacle of the EVH amp line, in my opinion. And I know several guys at EVH also feel that way. It's like the culmination of everything they've learned for pot values and circuits and gain structure. It's so damn good. The EVH stuff as a whole is so amazing, but I do love the original 5150. I really would love to get a 5152 because that was the first 5150 I ever owned personally, a 5152 head from 2004. And that was the greatest thing I'd ever heard at that time. I just couldn't even believe how good that sounded. I would really love to get another one to compare it all these years later, but that's another story for another video. But yeah, EVH 50 watt Stealth is probably the pinnacle of all of the 5150 circuits, in my opinion, if I had to choose just one. If you could only get one, would you go with the Mesa Badlander or the Rev 100R? Mostly for metal, but versatility is important. Thank you, Ed, for your question. This is a tough one. You know, if you're mostly playing metal but do want versatility, I think, here's my analysis. The Mesa Badlander is a fantastic amp. I don't think it's as versatile, in my opinion, as the Rev Generator 100R. I thought you said P for some reason. The R. Here's why. The Mesa Badlander has less features, but is more focused on the guitar tone. However, the high gain guitar tone, it's EQ kind of funny in comparison to other high gain amplifiers. And what I mean by that is the low end seems to be detached from the rest of the frequency spectrum. In the low mids, there is such a severe scoop out of the low mids that the low end has a hard time meshing with the rest of the frequency. So it often sounds like when you're chugging and palm muting and playing heavier handed stuff, you can hear a separation between the mid-range and the top end and the low end. Whereas something like the Generator 100R is much more cohesive feeling for me and sounding. Now, again, both amps are phenomenal. Both can load the IRs, both can, go direct. If you care about things like a noise gate and reverb, the Rev has that stuff. The Rev has just a lot more features and channels, I believe, than the Badlander. However, if you land on either one of those amps for your high gain tones, you'll be coming out ahead. I mean, you're gonna sound great with either amp. Both amps are awesome. And that does it for this episode of FAQ Monday. If you have a question, hit me up on Twitter or leave it down below in the comments, and we will get you on a future episode, I promise. Fluff out. If you enjoyed the video that you just watched, please consider subscribing. It helps me, help you, and then in turn you get more stuff to watch. And also, I have all sorts of stuff down in the description of this video. Sweetwater giveaway stuff, there's all sorts of links to all sorts of things, so consider checking that out as well if you're gonna hang. But if you don't hang, all good. I still love you.